record them when they come in. I'd like to welcome everyone to the sixth meeting of the 25 Interim Joint Committee on Education, and ask members at this time if you'll silence your cell phones. We'll get ready to proceed. I think we have some members in another meeting, but we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a pretty healthy agenda, and so we'll need all of the time that we have. Recognize Chair Tipton and Co-Chair West, if they have anything, any comments or anything.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to remind everybody it's only 63 days to session. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get to it.
All right. Any members have any introductions or comments? Senator Higdon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of my superintendents here today. Well, not one of them's not mine, used to be. Barry Lee from Casey County. And then I have Ryan Clark from Barstown Schools, and want to make them welcome. Thank you all for being here.
I don't see any others. We may have to come back to the minutes. We don't have. Do we have a quorum? Yeah. Jay, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Rawlings. Senator Reed.
Here.
Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner. Senator Williams.
Here.
Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise. Representative Baker.
Here.
Representative Banta. Representative Bojanowski. Representative Bratcher. Representative Brown. Representative Emily Callaway. Representative Josh Callaway.
Here.
Representative Camel.
Here.
Representative Kleins. Representative Decker.
Present.
Representative Doan.
Present.
Representative Fleming. Representative Grossberg.
Present.
Representative Grossel.
Here.
Representative Hale.
Here.
Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative Massaroni. Representative McCool. Representative Payne. Representative Proctor. Representative Rayburn.
Here.
Representative Riley. Representative Rourke.
Here.
Representative Stalker.
Present.
Representative Thompson. Representative Truitt. Representative Wilner.
Here.
Co-Chair West. Co-Chair Tipton.
Here.
And then Chair Lewis.
Here. I have members need to record attendance vote. All right. We've got Representative Banta, Representative Bojanowski, Senator Tishner. Is that it? All right. Votes are recorded. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Got a motion and a second? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Minutes approved. All right. Just one more reminder to our presenters. Try to keep it short and sweet, because we want time for our members to be able to ask questions. We've got a healthy agenda. I'm going to try to keep you on track, and we value what you have to say, but we only have so much time. So we have this room, and we're going to be out of here by 1. So we've got to keep it moving. All right, the first presenter, United Way of Southern Kentucky. Put a timer. 20 minutes. Actually, put it at 15. Need you to introduce yourself for the record. And then you may proceed. Make sure your green light's on.
Yeah, there you go.
Push. That helps a lot there. Thank you. Technology, perhaps not my greatest strong suit, but my name is Ann Puckett. I am a longtime board member for United Way of Southern Kentucky, two-time past chairman, also the head of a Operation Ready Child, which is a fundraising effort that we've had locally for a grassroots effort that we're going to kind of educate you all on this morning. I'm a retired CPA, and so now my full-time job seems to be working with United Way these days. And I'll let these two each introduce themselves.
Good morning, Craig Browning, retired financial services individual that got back in the business after 35 years. So about 38 years in financial services now. Former regional chairman for United Way of Southern Kentucky, serve on the committee with Ann and others, volunteer, donor, community servant.
Good morning. I'm Rob Clayton, Superintendent, Warren County Schools, and I'm a longtime board member of our United Way there in Bowling Green, Warren County, and it's great to be here with you all this morning.
All right, we'll get started. Try and understand we'll try to be cognizant of everybody's time. So that is if I can be smart enough to figure out how to run these slides. All right, we'll just do it the old-fashioned way and scroll it. So really what we're here to talk to you all about this morning is a problem that we've been trying to attack, quite honestly, in our part of the state for a number of years, and that's really the issues with early childhood education. Really where we started a focus about 10 years ago was a deep study to try to say, we have been for many, many years funding various programs to help try to alleviate basic needs and the struggle for basic needs in our communities. And we really were not seeing those needs go away. We really were seeing them increase over time. And so we did a deep dive and really ultimately decided that education was really where we were lacking. Those folks who started out behind in life stayed behind in life. And where we decided to focus a lot of our efforts was in kindergarten readiness scores. Something that's tangible, something we can measure, and something we can determine how we're being successful in raising those rates. So if you look at where we started and across the state of Kentucky, we were at less than 50% of our students entering kindergarten testing ready to be there. And that testing ready is really basic skills. It's not that they've got to be able to read and write and do things on a high level. These are basic skills where they can function in a classroom setting, that they can line up, that they can hold a pencil, that they can do all those basic things. We had 50% of the students testing not ready. With some focused efforts in our 10-county Brad region, with highlighting programs that we thought would be effective in helping attack that, we raised that over several years to about 55%. Felt like we were on a great path. And then COVID hit, quite honestly, and took a deep, deep dive in those scores very quickly. When those kids couldn't be around other kids and in the classroom, it just became that much worse. So since COVID, we've had some marginal increases, quite honestly, kind of back up to where we were when we started this whole process, and we decided we needed to take a much deeper dive. So that's the overall focus that we've had, but we'll go back and talk just a few minutes about a couple of things. Really, brain development is, as we have studied this and talked to many, many experts, is really unbelievable that in the first 5 years of a child's life, they've really developed 90% of their brain function. And that's the brain is the only organ in the body that is not fully developed when you're born. And all of that first 5 years helps wire the neutrons, helps ultimately determine what that brain is going to be for the rest of your life. So as we've studied this, we've said then the earlier we get to kids and the earlier we help, we are going to have better learning options for that child, better problem solving, better intellectual work. And really, that has to start in the home. That's really got to start at birth to ultimately help make sure that we are involved in helping parents support that literacy and a very successful trajectory, let's say, for that child. So let's talk for a second about what's the impact of them not being prepared for kindergarten. Some of this, you may have heard some of these before, but some of these may be logical. If you have kids in the classroom who aren't ready, teachers are going to have to focus their time and effort on a lot of those students who need help. And that's going to really be to the detriment of other students in the classroom that are functioning at the right levels, and ultimately they somewhat get held back because of that distraction, if you will. But as we look at other statistics, unprepared children coming into kindergarten are 7 times more likely to be suspended or expelled in later grades. And the statistic that stands out to me when we look at literacy rates in juveniles that are interacting with the court system, 85% of those juveniles are considered to be low literate, and 70% of adult inmates can't read at the 4th grade level. So ultimately, these are just compounding problems that if we don't attack it early, we see what can happen throughout, the employment system, because ultimately, if they don't graduate, they're likely to drop out of school. We're ultimately going to see lower employment rates at lower level jobs, and ultimately, this is just a cycle that ultimately those kids can never get out of. These statistics are what you've probably heard before, but they always stand out to me. If a child is not reading at grade level by the time they're in 3rd grade, they're 4 times more likely not to graduate from high school. And if that same child is from a low-income household, they're 6 times more likely not to graduate from high school. And then if we look at those high school dropout rates, those high school dropouts are 63 times more likely to be incarcerated during their lifetime. So as we really took a step back after COVID, and in our area, after a tornado hit 2 years after COVID, which ultimately was another factor, we believe, in those low kindergarten readiness rates, we convened people and said, what is it that we need to do that will have the most impact to help us move this needle? How can we ultimately be the most efficient with money, the most efficient with time, and figure out what is going to be the best answer? And they ultimately said, it's really having parents involved in their child's learning. We've got to get in front of those parents early on and ultimately help them understand how everyday activities can ultimately help a child to learn, help that brain development, and give mentors to those parents to help them help their own children. So as we talked about that, we said, well, we already know of a program that exists that, quite honestly, United Way was already funding on a very small scale, that is in-home parent educators. So this doesn't require bricks and mortar, doesn't require heavy capital investment to do it. You're ultimately talking about putting boots on the ground folks to go into the homes and work with those children and parents to help them along the way to understand what milestones should they be looking for. They are in the homes as observers to ultimately help those families navigate if they see a milestone not being reached. Well, what programs are out there that we can get that child enrolled in to ultimately help hopefully alleviate and eliminate those barriers that potentially exist for that child. This program is ultimately trying to help them, again, do all of those markers from 0 to 5, that early brain development, working with those children all along the way from 0 to 5 to ultimately help that child have the best opportunity for success. And we have seen this function, and really where this program started, quite honestly, was in the state of Missouri many years ago. And today, these in-home parent educators is funded across the state of Missouri for every child entering their school system. So we know it's doable. We know it's been successful. That dates back to 1985 when they started funding that at a statewide level for every child. It's still funded that way today. So locally, we are already funding this on a very small scale. When we started this, we were funding it at 4 teacher educators in 3 of our counties. Those children that have come out of that program over the last number of years are testing at 86% ready for kindergarten. So 30% better success rates with those kids that are in this program than children who are not. So to me, I said I'm a retired CPA. I'm kind of a numbers person. So those stand out to me to say, We want to be involved in successful ways to help our children succeed. And this is really what we found to be probably the most successful, again, not capital intensive in the sense of you don't have to build bricks and mortar. This is putting those people in the homes. I mean, where can you be most effective? In the home environment, to see things around the home to help them teach their own children. And it is a voluntary program for the parents. So these are folks who want that help. They want you to be in the home, ultimately there to help make this happen. So to try to focus this even more, we, about 3 years ago, started a program, a capital campaign, if you will, called Operation Ready Child. In our area of the world, we say, you find a problem, we're going to try to attack it. And we went out to private folks and said, we are going to have a grassroots funding work to ultimately help put more parent, teacher, educators in the homes. And so far, the current focus areas have been Allen, Logan, and Warren counties. We have so far been able to commit to 3 years of funding for 4 additional staff. So that doubles the number of parent, teacher, educators in our area. More than doubles, because we're at 9.5 in total today. We've raised over $1 million from private individuals to help make this happen. And our goal is to build the case and to build the data to ultimately help more folks, and quite honestly, the folks sitting in this room, to understand that we believe this is really a way to attack this at a very early age and have the most effective way to help move these kindergarten readiness scores and put success out there for those children. So what's our ask at the end of the day? We feel like the private dollars have been put out there to try to get this boots off, get it off the ground on a bigger level. We want to double that. We want to, our request is $600,000 for the next 2-year cycle, $600,000 each year. And that would ultimately help us put 12 more educators out there, and you can see the different counties that we would be talking about, which is the 10-county Brad area that we basically have helped support for United Way of Southern Kentucky. We want to ultimately help build this out to a much bigger model. With that many people, with that many new educators, we can serve 360 families and 660 more children to ultimately help build the model and help prove the model that this is a successful way to help make our children have a better opportunity. So this is our goal, to ultimately build the case that someday we'd love to see. Our dream, if we talk about big dreams, is for the state of Kentucky to be funding this at a statewide level. And where we've started to put our foot in the ground and stake in the ground is right in our local community, and would love your help and support to make this happen. So we're here to answer questions and would love to entertain any questions that any folks have.
All right, thank you very much. We do have some questions. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and panel. Thank you for your presentation. Being an old farm boy, I'm going to say you hit the nail on the head. Parents are the key to our education outcomes and education success for our students. Now, Mr. Chair, I'll make a couple comments, and I'd like to yield to Representative Jackson to answer a question for me, because he's an expert on this.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. I'm sure. Now back.
Go ahead.
Back in the 24th session, Representative Jackson worked on an initiative, similar to this, about how we can provide preschool education to children in their homes. And we had an appropriation in the budget for a pilot project. Unfortunately, that project did not come to fruition. But I'd like Representative Jackson to share a little bit about what that was involved. And it's possible those funds weren't appropriated. Maybe they could be appropriated in the next budget. If Representative Jackson would kindly share his expertise on this.
Thank you, Chairman Tipton. I saw the same thing that you're talking about, Ann, when I came to Frankfort, but I didn't see any desire for mandatory pre-K here in Frankfort. So I thought, what can I do as an individual legislator? And when 90% of the brain is developed by age 5, why are we spending all of our money on the back end of that, trying to catch kids up in high school when it's too late?
Absolutely.
Most of the time it's too late. So we did file a bill, and it got passed. Chairman Tipton, we do have 1 year of funding through KDE, and they have started this program. I saw what you saw. We have to start at the home level. This is a program that is technology-based, which most kids enjoy, but it also has to be done with the parents. If they'll spend 20 minutes a day with their child on this computer program, we set it up for 400 families. 40% of those had to be low income. So we have the 400 families now in the program. And if they will spend 15 to 20 minutes a day on this computer-based program, it really moves the needle in trying to, Utah has done this and some other states has. So I wanted to find what can we do if pre-K is not an option, mandatory pre-K is not an option, then what can we do? So you are doing exactly what I wanted to do, only you're going in the home and teaching the parents how to do it instead of them using it on a technology basis. So I appreciate so much. I have seen what, I've met with you all, I've seen what you're doing, and it's a great program. I hope we can get the money so we can expand this. This could be a pilot project for the whole state. If we can do it in the 10-county Brad region, we hope we could do it in the other 110 counties across the state.
Representative Jackson, just to follow up on that, Representative Tipton, if that's okay. Yes, we go into the home, these parent educators do. They're in the home minimum on a monthly basis. So if you think about a parent educator going in, sitting down with the parent or the guardian, right? These aren't always parents. It may be aunts, uncles, grandparents that are raising these children. Talk about the progress that they made the prior month. What's the next month going to look like? We can help these guardians really be that educator. A lot of folks, I think it's a misconception to say, well, you've got to get in the home. They don't want you to come into their home. True, there are folks like that. They don't want you to come into their home. But there are a great number of folks that want to help their children. They just need to know that there's help available. So as we have talked more about this and the educators in the region understand it's available, we're getting introduced to more families that want that assistance. And that's where we've seen that boost to 86%. Quite frankly, I think it could be much higher than that.
Representative Josh Callaway.
Thank you, Chairman. I just had a question if y'all had any research that maybe show culturally why this has become an issue. For instance, my wife did this with our children and had them ready to go into kindergarten. As a mother, she did that. And so what culturally are you all thinking that has produced this issue that would cause us to send government dollars and government employees into parents' homes to teach them how to get their kids ready for kindergarten?
Rob, you want to address it?
You take that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I fully understand your question in terms of the cultural piece, but here's what we do know. We have a large percentage of our families, not just in the Brad region, but across the Commonwealth, that are living in what I would call chaos. And because of that, it's having a dramatic impact on the brain development of students, of young children. And so getting the parent educator or anyone into the home to help educate these parents about some of these milestones, about the importance of the interactions. I'll tell you one here, and I know Senator Givens is very in tune with this, but when we talk about technology, all right, there's a counter impact on brain development. And so in all actuality, putting technology in the hands of our adolescents, 1, 2, 3-year-old children, there's a lot of health complications from that. Now, I don't have the research in front of me, but I can assure you it's overwhelming. And so really the interactions is the key piece here. We know that. There's plenty of, and I'm happy to share that with you. I just don't have it in front of me. But it's these interactions that are really most critical. And those of us that have experienced different backgrounds. Sometimes you don't appreciate what occurred in the home when we were raised as compared to what we're seeing when we go into these homes now. And there's a whole litany. You can talk about even from the interactions, as I mentioned earlier, but their surroundings. There are learning moments from birth that our children are experiencing in some homes, and they're not experiencing it in others. And so that's really the key piece here. Not sure if that answered your question, but I'll certainly be glad to get the research.
Yeah. Just a quick follow-up. So I guess what you're saying is it's the increased homes of chaos that have produced this need. I guess, is that what you are getting at? Is there a community failure, home failures, those types of things? What has changed to create more chaos that we think that the answer is to spend tax dollars and send government employees into people's home to help with that chaos?
Right. Couple things. Number one, when we're talking about government employees, I assume because they would be receiving the support from the government, but these would actually be individuals in the community that have a desire to help young people. And so it wouldn't be, quote unquote, what I would term a government running organization. But in terms of chaos, unfortunately, it's very complex because there's a number. You can point to poverty. You can point to education level. You can point to substance abuse, which is prevalent all across America, and certainly in the Commonwealth. And then when you're looking at the poverty piece, we're talking about employment. We're talking about looking for employment. So when I use the term chaos, it's all these challenges that families are seeing, and some it's overwhelming. I think about my own experience. My world may get chaotic with one or two things from time to time. We're talking about families. They all love their kids. Make no mistake about it. The challenge is their actions don't reflect their love for their child. And so why is that? And directly, in my opinion, you could point it straight toward the challenges, which chaos is just the term coined to say that it is absolutely overwhelming for these families. And then in this case, we're talking about the students, the children are the ones that are most impacted.
Thank you. Representative Stalkner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate this. A couple of questions that I have, but the first one is there a particular age, a minimum or a maximum that a child has to be in order to be eligible for an individual to come in and start working with a family?
No, it would be from birth, birth to 5. And you realize in these homes, usually you will have multiple children. So you may get, referred through some other agency for a 3-year-old they think needs, this as an example. But there might be a 6-month-old in the home and a 4-year-old. There could be multiple kids. So that's the benefit of being in the home, is you can affect all of those children. And the honest answer is they're not going to say, well, this sibling is over 5, so we're not going to help that person along the way. They're there to observe and help with the entire family. So the goal in the perfect world would be that child, and you're working with that parent, those parents from the day the child's born, right? And you're helping them all the way through that system. So that would be your marker, is birth. And then really you're going to be helping everyone in the family. As long as there's someone between 0 to 5 in the family, you're going to be helping all of that family along the way.
May I follow up, please?
Briefly, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that it starts at birth, because my next question was about what percentage of children or homes that you are serving do you see that having this specialist in the home is also catching those early interventions when it comes to programs like First Steps, which we know children, or for some of us who may not know, they're only eligible between 0 and 3. And sometimes it doesn't come onto their radar until that child technically, is no longer eligible. They're already past that 3 years age, and now they're no longer eligible for those services. So anything you can tell us about catching those kids early on and maybe helping them get services that they need?
I would just say this: the parent educators are themselves trained not only on the program, but they understand the other things in the community that are available, and then we have resources and other programs. So can't give you a specific percentage, but that is part of the training, and they understand case by case what a family needs, and they can help direct them outside this program to other resources. Also keep in mind, one parent educator can serve about 35 families, 55 children. So when you think about hiring other individuals through other ways to have impact, you're probably not going to find any program that's as efficient as this.
Thank you.
We've got time for 2 more questions, then we're going to have to move on because we're getting behind. Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for the presentation. It's kind of ironic that we're hearing this. I was just speaking with someone about the possibility of refiling the Horizons Act from 2 years ago, which is related to early childhood education. I believe that that's the approach we need to take. Pre-K is great and part of that, but learning begins at birth, and that has been driven home. Every day I see my new grandbaby, and I see the changes in her from week to week, and to see that development in her brain. And I've never really paid that much attention to it, but it's so obvious. And we are so missing the boat on this and not investing in early childhood education. As far as curriculum or what's actually being taught or what you all would be teaching the parents to teach their children, where does that come from? Is it anything to do with the curriculum that early childhood education centers utilize, or any connections that you all are making with the Division of Child Care? Help me understand that.
Well, the curriculum comes from, there is a national parents educator curriculum to train these individuals. So it's a proven, program that's out there that is now, our goal is to magnify that. They're taught, again, to look for markers along the way. And as Craig described, okay, what do we need to be looking for next month? What are we working towards the next time I visit? So to walk those folks, those parents, through that step by step as they go along. To get you into the specifics, we can certainly get you that information and what the curriculum looks like. But like I said, it's a national program that has, I think there's about 8,600 parent educators across the nation right now that are trained to do this out in the homes to do this type of thing. And if you think about that, and we have 9.5 currently here in the state of Kentucky doing that. So we want our numbers to magnify, to ultimately to reach many more children.
And I think we need to be careful about regionalizing. We do need to think about a statewide effort as part of the overall solution. And this is all about our kids, and it's about meeting families where they are. It's about investing in the kids. And this is a critical component that we often don't think about. We're all about education choice. And this is the equivalent to homeschooling for K through 12, and we need to look at it that way. We need to invest in it. I would be interested in talking to you all more about maybe codifying a pilot project through a piece of legislation to move this on as we look at a total package, not just pre-K, but a total package for all of our families and all of our kids. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, we do agree with you in the sense that if we can be a pilot, we want to do that. I've always lived a life professionally and personally. You want to help people that want to help themselves. We hope that we've represented by raising $1 million over the last couple of years that this is something we believe in. We've seen it work firsthand. We're doubling down. We're asking for your assistance, and we truly believe at the end of 2 years we're going to show you data that will do exactly what you want. Make the argument that this is something we should be doing statewide.
And just real quickly, Mr. Chairman, so in the last budget, we passed funding for innovations in early childhood education delivery. Have you all looked at the possibility of getting some funding from that grant?
I don't think so. No, sir, I don't think so.
That was the purpose for different delivering models, and this is absolutely unique in dealing with a more specific population. So in the intent of what that language originally was, this would be something that would be eligible for some of that funding. So you all might look into that.
Thank you. We'll follow up on that.
Last question, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up on Representative Callaway's question. As a career educator, and I spent 5 years on the Warren County School Board with Superintendent Clayton, divorce, highest rate that it's ever been, 2 parents working just to make ends meet, EL students, English language learners. Warren County and Bowling Green schools have a 30% EL population. Poverty, drug and alcohol abuse, all of those things contribute to those kids going, less than 50% going into kindergarten ready. Now, that 3-year-old didn't choose who his parents were. Mm-hmm. They didn't choose who their parents were. And to me, the godly thing is to help that child wherever they're at, whatever situation they're in, whatever environment they're in. And in finishing up, we can either pay now or we can pay later.
Yes.
You pay now to help them develop, or we're going to pay for them later on welfare. We're going to support them in jail, and the crimes that they commit are going to cost us all money. So it's one or the other. You pay now or you pay later. The evidence says you're better off paying now. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Great presentation, great information. It's been enlightening, and we appreciate y'all's presentation. Great job.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next on the agenda, we have preschool education. If you'll make your way to the table, make sure the green light's on, introduce yourself for the record, and you all may proceed.
Good morning. My name is Melody Cooper, and I'm the policy advisor in the Office of Special Education and Early Learning at the Department of Education. And we appreciate the invitation to be here this morning and share some information about state-funded preschool with you.
Good morning. Is my button on? Push. There we go. All right. Good morning. I'm Andrea Bartholomew. I am the branch manager for school readiness at the Department of Education, which is within the Office of Special Education and Early Learning. And we are going to share some information with you about the Kentucky preschool program. Okay. Are we just going to scroll up?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Button's not there.
Button's not there. All right, no worries. Keep on going. All right, so a little bit of history and background of the state-funded preschool program. It was created in 1990 through the Kentucky Education Reform Act. Preschool offers developmentally appropriate programs at no cost to families for 3- and 4-year-old children that have disability or developmental delay, or 4-year-old children who meet income standards. When we discuss developmentally appropriate preschool programming, we mean that program that focuses on the physical, intellectual, social, emotional development of young children. Programs that we have to help those students with their interpersonal and socialization skills, much like the United Way was speaking earlier. The eligibility for a preschool program is targeted in Kentucky. We provide at no cost. They have to meet one of those 2 eligibility criteria. Students have to be 4 years old by August 1st. To meet that income. We call that at-risk or income eligibility. We kind of use those terms interchangeable. Or they can have a disability or developmental delay. That could be 3 or 4-year-old students. They can be diagnosed or determined to have special education needs throughout the school year. Schools, local school districts can enroll additional students. Those could be students under a tuition base using Title I funds. They could use general funds to support all of the 4-year-olds in their area. That would be a local district decision. The funding for preschool programs in Kentucky is provided by the General Assembly during each budget biennium. A formula is used once those funds are provided based on enrollment counts. We base it on the previous year's enrollment count. So we're coming up on December 1st. We'll take that first enrollment count. We'll take one on March 1st. We'll average those out in the spring, and then we'll provide the money for next school year, the 26-27 school year, within the summer through Flex Focus funds. We have a standard per rate that we divide out for our children: at risk or income eligible, speech impairment, and developmental delay. Those students are provided one rate. And then we have another weighted category for 3 and 4-year-olds that have severe disabilities. This would be autism, traumatic brain injury, visual impairments, things of that nature that might need a little extra support. This chart shows the preschool rates from 2019 until our current rates. You can see they've remained relatively the same. Was a little bit of a difference during our COVID year, which was 21-22. The preschool enrollment dropped that year, so the pot of money was larger to be spread out to all of the districts. So the money was a little bit higher then, but it's remained relatively stable for the last several years. The next two charts will show you the preschool total enrollment. This is recorded from 2014 until 2024. This just shows you the total enrollment has stayed relatively the same. In 2014, we served 18,426, and then last school year, 18,837. Obviously, the dip there was our COVID year. This chart outlines disability and at-risk or low-income students. The red hash line is our students who would be considered at-risk, income eligible. The green line is students with disabilities. As you can see, we do have more students currently with disability or a diagnosed developmental delay within our preschool programs. These are a couple interesting facts about preschool. Preschool school districts in Kentucky, they are required to employ certified interdisciplinary early childhood education, IECE, teachers. This is a dual teaching certification that allows the teacher to provide both general regular education and special education. This allows for our classrooms to be inclusive environments where students of all ability levels learn together. Kentucky is number 4 in the country at providing inclusive environments. We're pretty proud of that. A few other fast facts. Districts can select from program options that can include half day, which is a 2.5 hour day, or a full day of services. Anything above 2.5 would be considered a full day of services. That would be a district decision. State-funded preschool programs must focus on family involvement. As our United Way group was talking, families are our kids' first teachers. So we want to make sure that as a school district, we are helping those families to provide not just education for their children, but education for them as well. Here's how you read a book to your baby. Here's how you talk with your kiddo. Here's how you can do things in the grocery store that can help them with their accounting. And that's part of our regulation, is that that preschools focus on that family involvement. Providing transportation is optional, but most of our programs do. Programs must fully utilize federal funds through agreements with their local Head Starts. When Kentucky Preschool was founded in 1990, Head Start was the main provider of early childhood services, and so we wanted to ensure that school districts that took on these preschool programs were not supplanting those federal funds. Federal funds stay with federal, state stays with state. So they have to have an agreement with their local Head Start per regulation. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about preschool quality. The Kentucky All-Stars Quality Rating System is an expanded 5-star quality rating improvement system that's required across all of our early education programs in Kentucky. That's child care, Head Start, and state-funded preschool. This system is based on our early childhood standards and research-based indicators of quality. The All-Stars program recognizes preschools, child cares, and Head Starts that have made a commitment to have that continuous quality improvement. They provide additional support, trainings, technical assistance, and coaching. The All-Stars rating system was created in 2015 with House Bill 234 funded through the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grants. They were federal funds that were used. This was implemented successfully across all the settings by 2018. There was a little bit of a pause with the pandemic. Most things were closed. You were unable to provide ratings at that time. That was across all of our settings. The Department of Education began that re-implementation process in 2024. And our first cohort just finished last school year, and we're starting cohort 2 currently in the 25-26 school year. Some of the requirements for All-Stars: it's required to have that graduated early childhood rating system, and it's also required that this is not punitive. This is not an enforcement of compliance. This is not any type of punishment. This is, let's get our programs quality. Let's get us in our programs up to where they should be. to serve all of our students. This chart just shows you the ratings, levels 1 through 5. The same chart would be used for Child Care Head Start as well. Shows you some of the point criteria in there. Based on the regulations, state-funded preschool program sites differ because we enter the process at a level 3 star. This is because we have more rigorous standards for credentialed staff. Our staff are provided benefits, fringe, all of those things that come with being a school district employee. We have different levels of professional development. And because our programs are part of their local school district, sometimes those standards for facilities would be higher as well. As we talked earlier, we're in cohorts for this, so it's required by regulation. Every 3 years, you are rated through the All-Star system. So now our regional early childhood technical training centers, they provided us with lists, and they're each of their 5 regions, put their people into cohorts. So now we have those lists, and that I said we are beginning cohort 2 right now. That's about All-Stars. So Kentucky partners with a lot of different agencies across the state. The KDE partners with the Governor's Office of Early Childhood. KDE provides oversight and support for state-funded programs, while the GOEC works to unify those partners across all the aspects and all the places in early childhood, child care, Head Start, us. We work with them in lots of different ways. Here's just a few highlights. We work with them through partnership grants, professional development grants. We'd have lots of committees with them and cross-agency committees. We focus on early childhood data. We focus on quality. And then there are the early childhood standards. The Governor's Office of Early Childhood worked with Child Care, Head Start, and state-funded preschool program representation to create the early childhood standards many years ago, and we just met again to revise those quite recently. So that we work with them on those standards to make sure that all of our early childhood partners are sharing the same standard for our students. All right, I'm done. Short and sweet.
We have a few questions, so Representative Wilner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this question. I think it's really a question of supply and demand. So how, of the kids who are eligible for this, how many are able to participate? Wait list? Are there disparities across the state in offerings? That's what I'm trying to get at here.
So districts should not have a wait list. So if a child shows up and they are eligible for services, then they should be able to receive those services, immediately, whether that be for income eligibility and students with disabilities. As far as the percent of kids, I don't have that figure right off the top of my head. I'm thinking it's around 20%, but don't quote me on that. The percent of kids who could potentially be eligible but who don't participate for one reason or another.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions, if you'll indulge me, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Do you do any work with Born Learning? Born Learning is in all districts across the state. Does that somehow, do you guys connect at all?
That's not someone we've connected with currently.
Okay. And my next question is, you guys have been doing this for a long time. Do you have the data on the kids that are in your program that can read on 3rd grade level when they get there?
We don't have that as part of the data collection as far as, tracking that through the system because of the way the kids are entered into the state system. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't have that off the top of my head. I do think that is something we could probably put together, but I don't have it right here. I know at the district level, sometimes it's hard for them to follow the kids throughout the system if they've been highly mobile.
I think that when you're spending the amount of money that we spend, that would be really important data. So if you have anything like that, I would like to see it. And if not, then I think we should get it.
Yeah.
Okay?
We can work to pull that together.
Thank you.
Representative Camuel.
Thank you. And actually, Rep. Wilner asked one of the questions that I was going to ask, so I'm just going to make a quick statement. I think to me, and I think the data shows it, that the single most important investment that we can make in our children and in the future of the state of Kentucky, with the greatest return on investment, is to do exactly what you all do, and to have us then fund preschool starting with all 4-year-olds. So thank you all for what you do. It is the most important thing we can give to our kids. So thank you.
Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of quick questions. On the All-Stars rating system, you know what the average early childhood education center in the state rating is?
We just began this first cohort for the state-funded preschool. Andrea, do you have the information for statewide?
So with All Stars in preschool, we have to delineate. It's not by school district; it's by school site. So in a district, it has multiple programs in different elementary schools that each one could have a different score. So thinking about average, we're probably a 4, I would say, out of the 5-point scale would be.
My policy analyst says 2.7, so we'll have to get together on that and see what we're different on that. As far as quality goes, and that's where I'll bring that up, quality is important. Everything that I have heard, I was in Seattle a couple years ago. They started Universal Pre-K. The director came to us and they said they started with quality, not quantity. What kind of professional development opportunities do you all provide or provided for these early childhood teachers, and are there coaches available to help them?
We do provide professional learning through the regional training centers primarily. They cover topics such as early literacy, early numeracy skills, and then also some positive behavior supports and improvement as well.
Okay. One more quick question, Mr. Chair. I've got some data from the KDE website, and it's got the readiness scores broken down across all segments of what type of early childhood education the students had. And the data I have here shows that all students are at 48% readiness. For students who were in the state-funded preschool, 49%, only a 1% increase. Child care, 68%. Head Start, 45%. And home setting, 34%. And other at 60%. Could you share a little bit about how this data is collected? Is this data actually accurate? I've been told school districts aren't required to document this when a child enters kindergarten. So how reliable is this data, and what does this data tell you about the different early childhood education opportunities that are out there?
Well, I'm going to have to get into a little bit of my knowledge from my previous position where I used to work with the kindergarten readiness screener as the state administrator for that. And so it is a requirement that this data is collected, but it's a self-reported thing from the families. And also kids can fall into multiple categories. So it's interesting data, but it is some that we kind of use with caution.
Senator Rawlings.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Proficiency rates in our Kentucky public schools have been declining since 2015. I think it should always be part of the discussion when we are on an issue like this. What is going on? Why is that? And do we really want to expand the education that's going on right now? And another thing you mentioned is social emotional learning. Since around the 2015 timeframe, that's been a real focus. So have you looked at the correlation or, the success of social emotional learning as far as our results?
I think, if I'm correct, I believe the social and emotional domain is one that has improved over time since the kindergarten readiness results have been something that we've studied. Do you have anything further than that? Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Representative Grosso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the presentation today. I know anecdotally that there are some state-funded preschool programs that work really closely with their child care centers and in-home child care programs in their communities as it relates to offering some of the trainings that you were talking about, so that those child care programs don't have to pay for those. They're able to, use the state resources and be trained for free. And I think this is so powerful in districts that are making that effort. Some have kindergarten readiness rates at 90% out in our most rural counties. Just amazing. I wanted to see what you all are doing proactively in terms of encouraging your preschool programs to work collaboratively with their area child care providers in terms of assistance, both as it relates to cost for training and then standards for kindergarten readiness to make sure that students are getting support as it relates to kindergarten readiness.
So currently, the funding is actually expiring at the end of this year, but there are some preschool quality partnership grants that we've got going on where districts must partner with a child care facility in their community, and so there are quality and training opportunities that come along with that. And I believe we had 15 participants for this past grant cycle. And so, again, that will be expiring at the end of this year. And then the Early Childhood Regional Training Centers often invite those community partners to their trainings as well. Do you have anything to add to that?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I really think that you all should be encouraging it, not as a grant, but as a best practice for every school district to be doing that. It's what our kids deserve, and I believe that you all should be really reaching out and encouraging more partnerships. Thank you.
Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think that is happening from the Early Childhood Advisory Council meeting last week that I think the Governor's Office of Early Childhood, there is an increased emphasis on partnerships with school districts and early childhood education providers in the state. And there's also a stepped up effort on educating and training for early childhood educators and more of a formal process and formal degrees and assistance with that. So we're doing some really good things in that area. And I don't ever want it to appear I support public pre-K, and that's absolutely part of the solution. And I think a lot of what the confusion is the governor keeps touting pre-K for all, universal pre-K, but he doesn't define what that means. If it's public pre-K for all, there is a problem with that. There are substantial costs for infrastructure, for teachers, for transportation, you name it. Not to mention if it's full day public pre-K, the fact that private center, child care centers all across the state would close their doors because it is the preschool and school age kids are the only ages that early childhood education providers generate any revenue with. Babies and toddlers lose money. That's just the way the model is. We have regulated them into that environment. Not that that's a bad thing. We have to have ratios. We have to protect the kids. But those are the facts. The question that I have you all had any discussions on capacity with if universal pre-K means public pre-K? Have you all had discussions on what that might look like? How many buildings would we have to build? How many teachers would we have to hire? Any of those dynamics that would come along with that proposal?
Thank you, Senator. We have not gotten down into the weeds as far as all of that. And so, like many of the things that you mentioned, if any type of universal pre-K system were to come to pass in Kentucky, which, we're supportive of 4-year-olds having access to high quality early learning environments for sure. All of those things would have to be considered, though, the workforce, the facilities, transportation, and sustainability of the program. And then, the definitions can vary throughout the states that implement universal pre-K, where they involved mixed delivery systems as well. So we don't have the hard data on if it were all school districts, what would the impact be, but it would require careful consideration.
And when you say mixed delivery, are you talking about the relationships with a public pre-K program and a private child
The way
care
I
center
understand
to
it.
split?
Yeah, the
to
way
split
I
that?
understand it,
That-
yes.
That's what I mean
Mhm.
about that. That can mean different things, and we have to be careful
Right.
about that. And it's been frustrating through this process and all the meetings and the governor keeps talking about this, but yet he has never defined it. And these people are jumping on board, judges, mayors, without knowing what they're jumping on board for and what the cost might be associated with that. And if we're really going to get serious about this, we need to all get on the same page, and we need to look at a model that's going to serve our families and give our families options. And I think that's the only feasible way that we can do it, through structure, through cost, all of those things that are important. We have the systems in place through All Stars, and I would assure all members of this body, it is not easy to get a 5-star rating. That is quality. It took our center that I retired from years to get that rating, and it doesn't come easy. And I can vouch for the training that early childhood educators get from now to 15 years ago. It's a completely different world. We have the capacity in early childhood education to provide those services across this state if we invest. And we use public pre-K, we use private, we use in-home, we supply resources like those that just testified going into the homes. That is what we need to be doing to move our kids forward. Use every model that we have available, not be focusing on one public pre-K if that's what the governor is proposing. It simply won't work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next group up will be our school safety updates. If you all make your way to the table, introduce yourselves for the record, and please proceed.
Good morning. I'm John Akers. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Center for School Safety.
Good morning. I'm Shannon West. I'm the State School Security Marshal.
My name is Amy Riley. I'm the President of the Kentucky School Counselor Association.
Good morning. My name is Alex Carney. I'm a founder of a company called Critical Response Group, and I'm a former Special Operations Officer in the Marine Corps.
Okay, I was asked by Chair Lewis to come and share some information with you all. I was asked to introduce myself a little bit more, talk about the Center for School Safety, talk about SROs, and give my opinions about the School Safety Resiliency Act and how it's been implemented. So I hope to do this within 5 minutes, so bear with me. We'll go after it. I taught for 5 years civics, was a secondary school principal for 24 years, and ran Bryan Station High School and Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School. Retired in 1999, flunked retirement, and became the state director for school safety for the last 25 years. So here I am. So that's me in a nutshell. The Center for School Safety was a creation of you all in 1998 after the shooting we had down at Heath High School down in McCracken County. And it was House Bill 330 that created the Center for School Safety. We are governed by a board of directors that are appointed by the governor. Eastern Kentucky University has held the contract for the last 25 years running the center. We have two partners with us, Murray State University, who runs our website, and the Kentucky School Boards Association that runs our training and technical services portion of the Center for School Safety. If I were to give you a full definition of what the Center for School Safety is, we would be here till the cats come home. Cows come home, I guess, cats too. Basically, we're a one-stop shop. And it's 24/7. We're not an 8 to 3 o'clock person. School things happen after school, such as, a kid may commit suicide on a Sunday night. We'll get a call 10 o'clock at night saying we need help. Or just recently, we had a shooting after a football game. And so I'll get a call, 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. The main staff members that we have with the Center for School Safety have published our cell phones so that we're on 24/7 call anytime school districts need us. We are well connected with all of the education programs in the state, with our friends over here at the Education Cooperatives, and with child serving agencies. So we're networked with all of those. If I don't have an answer, I can reach out to any one of these folks and get an answer. I mentioned about our website. We just had a board meeting last week, and we had some interesting data. Our website had over 250,000 first-time visitors last year, and I'm not sure exactly what you call a hit is, but my guess is when you click on our website and you get a little bit deeper into it, each time you click it, it's a hit. And we had over 17 million hits on our website. We conduct trainings throughout the entire school year. Our biggie right now is the threat assessment team training that we're doing. School Safety Resiliency Act required us to get threat assessment teams in all of the schools, and we're providing training through our shop for threat assessment training. We've been in over half of the school districts in the state of Kentucky with our training model. We have a conference that we have every year. It's a 2-day conference. We're holding it this year on June the 9th and 10th at Great Crossings High School. Michelle Gay is one of our keynote speakers. Michelle runs Safe and Sound Schools. Her daughter was one of the children that were shot at Sandy Hook. She's a wonderful resource that we've had, including Frank DeAngelis, who's been a wonderful resource with us as well, who was the principal of Columbine High School. Our key report that we do, our key service that we do in the state is we conduct 110 safe school assessments a year. That's where I send a 6-member team after we interview everybody a month ahead of time to measure the climate and culture of the school. We now, with your permission, are extending our services to private schools upon request, and they've been very active in asking us for help, and we've been very happy to help them out. One of the spin-offs of the Senate bill, of the School Safety Resiliency Act was for us to have a partnership with the Office of Homeland Security to set up our stop tip line. Okay? We just had a report on that. We've been doing this for 6 years now, and from mid of August till end of October, we had over 1,300 hits, 65 with self-harm, 52 with weapons, 620 for bullying, and 154 for drug use. Now, there were other what we call non-actionable tips that come in. One is cheating. Another one is the chicken nuggets weren't as good as they were last year. And there was even one 2 years ago that Coach Calipari could have done a lot differently if he wanted to go further in the NCAA. Those are actual tips that we had. I hope that you've seen my annual report that we sent to you back in July. If you don't have it, please give me a shout, and I'll be glad to give you one. Let's talk a little bit about SROs real quick. 2015, we had 190 SROs. Today, we have 928. That's one of the spin-offs, again, of the School Safety Resiliency Act, requiring to have as funds become available, to have an SRO in every building in our state. Not just so much to have a gun in there, but for these officers to set up relationships with all the kids and the staff members so we can do a lot of prevention issues like that. Of the 928 SRO officers, we have 1,329 schools. You can do the math. We're light 401 schools when it comes to having SROs there on a full-time basis. Let's talk just briefly about the School Safety Resiliency Act. I look at several of you here. We were all on that committee together that toured around the state and listened to people. We were challenged by Senator Wise and Representative Carney to listen to what people around the state said about what needs to happen on school safety issues in the state of Kentucky. And as a result, one heck of a piece of legislation came out called our School Safety Resiliency Act of 2019. I have been in my role, as I said a minute ago, for 25 years, and I've been networked in with every school safety director in the country. I have received numerous calls over the years for copies of our School Safety Resiliency Act. You spent fantastic time to really research this out. Some of my colleagues in other states, they did a knee-jerk reaction with their school safety legislation that came out, which is coming back to bite them a little bit these days. Ours is really, really good, so I appreciate that. One of the nice spin-offs of this thing is to help me with my shop to marry our procedures and policies with the friends over at the School Safety Marshal's Office. As you remember, Ben Wilcox was one of the first marshals that we had. I'm very pleased to be working with Shannon West here and working together to keep our staff and students safe. So without further ado, I will move it on over to Shannon West from the Office of State School Security Marshal.
Thank you, John. Good morning. Mr. Chair, and members of the distinguished members of this committee. Again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what our office is doing and introduce myself as I was asked to do, to give you some brief background on me. I'll tell you this, I feel it's a distinct honor and privilege to get to step into this role. And I'll tell you something else, with Ben Wilcox, all I ever hear is how much everybody loves Ben. Yeah, I love Ben. And then to be followed up by Amy Hess, who is a bona fide rocket scientist and just had a distinguished career with the FBI. I got some big shoes to fill, so there's no pressure whatsoever here. And I still talk to Ben every day. A little bit about my background. Before stepping into this current position, I spent 10 years at the Department of Criminal Justice Training, where I was an instructor for a few years, and I got promoted to supervisor over our tactics section. And we taught things like emergency vehicle operations, active shooter response, de-escalation tactics, structure searches, and just to name a few things. Included in that, I worked with Ben in 2019 to help develop the curriculum and the training materials for our SRO training program. So I've been involved in that since the beginning, working with Ben, on that and the active shooter training video that all school teachers are required to look at every year. After that, I was promoted to branch training manager, where I was responsible for all the in-service training across the state of Kentucky. That's about 8,000 officers that we scheduled training for across the state. I had the leadership section, resiliency, patrol section, investigations, and all of our field offices and coordinated training for the last couple of years just prior to being selected for this position. I'm a veteran of the United States Army. I had 4 years of active duty service and another 5 years of the Kentucky National Guard. And I was also a Kentucky State Trooper for over 20 years. I've served at several posts, literally from Mayfield Post all the way to Pikeville and a few in between over my 20 years of service as I promoted through the ranks to lieutenant, finally retiring out of the Bowling Green Post, which is my home post area. I think it's important to point out that throughout my career, I've had a heavy emphasis on a lot of training on how to train police officers. And it's been on developing and delivering training that prepares officers for critical, high-risk, high-consequence tasks, and to use critical thinking and problem-solving to help them better make decisions under pressure, to help protect themselves and the citizens that they serve. And that carries straight over to the work that I'm doing today for the school security, state school security marshal, where preparedness, collaboration, and prevention is central to everything that we do. I was asked to give a brief overview of the office, and as he mentioned, I'm sure many of you who were involved in the beginning of this know much better than I. My office is responsible for monitoring school safety and security initiatives and developing training and conducting school safety assessments across the Commonwealth. I have a team of 12 compliance investigators and 2 supervisors who travel the state, and they conduct unannounced on-site risk assessments. The data they look at is they're looking at how closely our schools are meeting the requirements of the School Safety and Resiliency Act. One of the primary things that we're looking at in these schools, as many of you well know, it revolves around access control. As a foundational principle, these killers that are in our schools, they have access. And you got to stop that at every turn and do everything you can with protocols to try to bridge that gap. And we look at exterior doors to ensure that they're locked and secured. Ensuring that all the visitors report to the front office for screening and controlling that main entrance with an electronic locking mechanism, a camera, an intercom system. To ensure the classroom doors are locked during instructional hours, and ensuring that each classroom is equipped with a door window covering. And we look for other things such as an emergency preparedness, an updated emergency management response plan. I see our role is being there to coach, to guide, to provide training, and work alongside our school staff and administration in a collaborative effort to keep our schools safe. I'm proud to say that as of August 2025, 1,315 schools, public schools in the Commonwealth, are following statutory safety requirements required by the School Safety and Resiliency Act. I think it should also be noted that our school resource officers, as John mentioned, they have to have 120 hours of specialized training through DOCJT, ranging from critical skills, de-escalation, threat assessment and response, youth mental health awareness, adversity and awareness training, understanding students with special needs, and trauma-informed actions, just to name a few of the critical topics that we cover that better prepare them for meeting the needs and working with these children ranging from kindergarten through 12th grade. These SROs are trained to work closely with school counselors, and that better enables them and gives them a deeper understanding how to meet these kids' needs, and it also gives them the support that they need, to be that mentor and to be that someone in their lives. And getting down to one of the other things that I was asked to share with you, and it relates directly to that is the counselor to student ratio. And just a few data points that we collected over 2024 and 2025 that's in the annual report. The statewide average counselor to student ratio is one counselor to 301 students. Out of Kentucky's 171 school districts, 72 met the goal of one counselor for every 250 students, according to the data that was reported to us. While that average sits at 1 to 301, I think it's more important to note that the wide range of reporting that we got across the state. We have some schools that's got 1 to 200, which is excellent. And then we got other schools where it's 1 to 400 plus, not so excellent. And so we have some work to do. As John mentioned earlier, this highlights, what we're seeing is the need for more counselors and school-based mental health care professionals to meet the growing needs. And I think everybody here agrees, and from what I heard today, it is a growing need for that kind of support for our children in our schools. In closing, John and the Center for School Safety, they've been working with the school marshal's office well before I ever stepped into this role. And I can tell you that my work with KCSS and KDE, that close working relationship continues. And I tell you, I wear this man out. We talk 3 or 4 times a week, and in the past week, a whole lot more than that. And I think that's critical to our mission, to take that multidisciplinary approach to what is a multifaceted problem. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Thank you for your time and your steadfast support of school safety and the well-being of Kentucky's students and educators. And with that, I'm pleased to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Amy?
After Amy goes.
I do have a PowerPoint. Would you like to run it for me, John, or would you want
You come on.
you mean go down there? Okay. We'll trade seats.
I'm an analog guy trapped in a digital world.
I understand. If you'll give me just a moment.
I hate to do this to y'all, but the next little bit needs to be brief so we have time for questions.
Mine will be brief. Mine was designed to be less than 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. As I mentioned early on, my name is Amy Riley, and I am the president of the Kentucky School Counselor Association. Just as importantly to me, though, I'm an elementary school counselor just down the road here in Anderson County at Robert B. Turner Elementary. I have 587 babies that call me their school counselor, and that is truly an honor. The last time that I represented school counselors to a committee meeting was in 2019 when I sat before this body and asked for your support of the School Safety and Resiliency Act, and I come to you today saying thank you. Thank you for your support of that. Thank you that you didn't just include, as John Aker says, the hardware parts of that bill, but the heartware as well, which is the part that I'm absolutely passionate about. I also want to say thank you for the funding that you have already applied to that, the $7.4 million. I'm truly grateful, as are school districts across the state of Kentucky. Just to start off, I want to share with you very briefly who school counselors are. In my 20-plus year career, there has been a little bit of misinformation out there around us. Some folks still believe that we are the guidance counselors that they remember from the 70s and 80s, and our profession has evolved greatly. We are highly trained educators whose job is to support all students in Kentucky schools. And this makes us a little bit unique in our training. We can do Tier 2 and Tier 3 services for more intensive needs, but we provide Tier 1 preventative services to all students in the schools. If our three main purposes, while mental health is an important part of what school counselors do, that is not the majority of what our job is. We have three main domains where we serve Kentucky schools. One of those is through academic achievement. The second one is through emotional regulation and interpersonal skills. Sometimes those are referred to as soft skills or work-ready skills like conflict resolution and time management, things that employers are begging for in our workforce. And we help students plan for post-secondary readiness, whether that's the military or the workforce or higher education. We also implement a school-wide comprehensive school counseling program. If you walk into a school right now, you will see school counselors leading small groups. You will see us teaching lessons to all students on these skills and using nationally research-based standards. You will see us working with children. In the school safety realm, just to sum it up and make it extremely simple, school counselors are prevention. We are the first line of defense in school safety. We try to get at the root cause of the issue instead of just being reactive. And if you wonder why this matters, you can just look at the data that's on the screen. 25% of middle schoolers and 30% of high schoolers reported poor mental health most of the time or always in the 30 days before the survey. 30% of high school students missed one or more days of school due to poor mental health. Also, you will see that of middle schoolers, 10% have attempted suicide. 26% have seriously considered suicide. Among high school students, 8.6 attempted suicide in the past year, and 19% seriously considered it. This data is the reason why school counselors were included in the School Safety and Resiliency Act, and they're the reason why the ratio of 250 to 1 was written specifically into law. However, according to the state auditor's report, as was already mentioned today, nearly 50% of Kentucky school districts fall short of that recommended ratio. KDE's data says that the ratio is 1 to 306, very close to your data. ASCA, the American School Counselor Association, said it's 328. Regardless, it's not where it needs to be. So we support fully funding the law and providing enough mental health providers and school counselors as needed to fulfill this law. That would be, in total, 628 more counselors, and it would be about $40.4 million. So where did this number come from? This ratio of 250 to 1 for school counselors to students. It was not an arbitrary number. It is a number that was research-based. And as you can see on the screen, there is research behind this to support it. There were two studies that I want to highlight for you guys. One of those started from the Carolyn Hoekstra study, which said that in schools that had school counselors, adding just one school counselor, and this blew my mind when I read this, is more cost effective than adding an extra teacher to reduce class size or increase funding for PD. The study also shows that the addition of a school counselor has significant increases in academic achievement over even reducing class sizes. That blew my mind. And this study, out of Missouri, why the ratio matters. Students who had access to school counselors at this ratio of 250 to 1 had higher graduation rates, fewer absences, and fewer discipline referrals, especially in high poverty schools, and which I know is what we all want. When we think about the use of time, we know that the law says that 60% of school counselor time should be spent in direct service to students, but we are nowhere near reaching this threshold. One of the main reasons is just simply because of staffing shortages. Also, districts are having to use other mental health professionals to meet this requirement, and we value and partner with our other mental health professionals in the school system. But we know that their skill set is different. We know that they are specialized just as we are. School counselors are the ones who are trained to lead lessons and to coordinate school-wide programs. When we also think about a barrier to school counselors and mental health services in schools, A large one are the inappropriate uses of school counselors. As you all can see on this chart here, school counselors are often asked to do things that our National Association has deemed ineffective, like building the master schedule, enrolling new students, tracking down records, having bus duty, car duty, lunch duty, disciplining students, chairing ARCs, running 504 meetings. And all of these things take away from the time when school counselors can service students directly. Finally, there is just no universal system in place right now in Kentucky to even measure the time that students are spending with students. In conclusion, I just want to thank you all so much for everything that you've already done. And today my hope is just very simple, that we can finish what we started in 2019. It was important enough to write into legislation, and I believe it's important enough to fund. Prevention, in my opinion, is the secret sauce for school safety in that equation. And I respectfully and humbly ask that you would consider funding us during this session. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get one more and then we'll take questions. Alex Carney, if you'll present. I told you wouldn't have much time they got done talking.
Well, sir, I got my marching orders here. One sec. All right, committee, I really appreciate the time. My name's Alex Carney. I'm a Special Operations Officer in the Marine Corps. Some of you might have met my brother from Kentucky, Andrew Bidwell, who's a National Guard Special Forces officer. He recently got deployed on a contingency, so we wish him safety and security, but frankly, you're in better hands with a Marine right now, so here we go. All I'm going to be talking about, in school safety, there's so many priorities and there's so many important things a part of it. I'm just going to speak to something I know a lot about, which is maps. Mapping was included in recent legislation in Kentucky. It's probably the most prevalent school safety legislation out there. It's probably in 20 plus states right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit, just review the reasons why a map is important for communicating during an incident. And then I'm going to talk about how 7 different states are executing right now on school safety mapping programs, just so you can see an example of all the different ways that some states have applied this in reality. Again, all my experience from mapping comes from overseas. I have no public safety background whatsoever. All my experience just comes from using maps under stress in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Southeast Asia. Our challenge overseas was obviously not how you talk in a big building like a high school. It's how do you communicate about a mud hut in a tiny village in the middle of the desert somewhere. So to solve that problem, we had to come up with a very simple concept called the gridded reference graphic, or the GRG. And what we would do is take overhead imagery of that objective area we were going to, and we just turned it into a simple game of Battleship. So we put letters across the top, numbers across the side, and we gridded out that entire objective area so you could communicate about any location on that site. We would number buildings, we'd letter intersections. As it got more sophisticated, we might overlay our tactical plan on here, but the secret of this was that everybody who was participating in the operation got this same map. So it didn't matter if, you were at the top of the chain of command in the Situation Room in DC, or you were a Navy SEAL jumping off the back of a helicopter. We know these things work overseas from our experience. If they can work for Navy SEALs, they can work for everybody. So they're that simple. So what we noticed coming back from overseas was that first responders faced the same challenge. We were participating in a lot of active shooter drills with a lot of public safety. We realized the same challenge was faced by us overseas that public safety faced, particularly in a rural or suburban school, but also in an urban school as well. You would have often hundreds of first responders showing up at that site from often dozens of different agencies or departments. They'd never been to that campus or that building before, and they're obviously under a great deal of stress because, the lives of kids were at risk and their lives were at risk. So what our goal was, how do we take a simple tool that we use overseas that we know works for military operators under stress and make it work for first responders under stress so they can communicate in big tactical nightmare buildings like a high school about simple things like where to pull up an ambulance or where a casualty is located or where a threat is located or something like that. So obviously America's not Afghanistan, so we had to look at it a little bit differently. One of the first places we started to look at was at some of the after-action reports from big school shooting events. And as you look at those after-action reports, obviously they point to a lot of different things. One of the things that I noticed really quickly off the bat is, they rarely mention technology. Frankly, it's hard to find an after-action report that mentions the need for panic buttons. It's hard to find an after-action report that mentions the need for cameras. What often they do tend to mention is the lack of good maps. So you saw a lot of legislation passed post-Columbine where the principal was actually drawing the map of the school out at the command post. You saw a lot of legislation passed requiring floor plans to be submitted as part of school safety packages that went to the state. Oftentimes those floor plans, though, never got to public safety. So if you looked at Sandy Hook for the duration of that event, the floor plans to that school were inaccessible to the Connecticut State Police for the whole duration of that event, and they recommended disseminating digital floor plans to troopers throughout Connecticut. If you fast forward to Uvalde, floor plans did make it to the command post, but they didn't accurately depict the room. So you couldn't tell from an incident commander perspective that you could actually access that room through windows. It actually depicted a wall on that back side. So we looked at floor plans from our perspective, just people who'd spent a lot of time using maps around the battlefield. We saw similar problems. One, we found that if you hand an architectural drawing like this to a first responder under stress, it is almost impossible to communicate off of. It is abstract. It's not oriented a common direction. It's rarely accurate. I've seen several, tens of thousands of school floor plans. It's rare. I would say 99% of them have not been accurate, and they lack a lot of information a first responder might want to use to communicate, like what a hallway is called, or where a trauma kit's located, or what a door is numbered. So all in all, they're difficult products to actually use to communicate or navigate successfully during an incident. So what the language in SB2 did was basically turn those floor plans into a tool that could actually be used to communicate during an incident. The first thing that it required was a map get oriented north, so you could talk objectively using cardinal directions. It required a grid get overlaid on top of the campus, so I could talk about a location on the map without a landmark being there. It required schools to be walked for accuracy and be verified for accuracy by a walkthrough. So if I'm a stressed out law enforcement officer running down a hallway and I look and I'm trying to call out my location, is the sign on the door going to match what's on the map? And then third, it required the maps match the nomenclature that schools use. So for example, if a school called one wing of the school the kindergarten wing, even if that wasn't on a sign on the wall or labeled on the architectural drawing, it's probably important that that show up on the map, because that's probably how someone under stress at that location is going to refer to their position if they're making a 911 call or radio call from the structure. But
I hate to cut you off, but you'll need to wrap up so we got time to ask some questions. We got roughly 30 minutes to get two more presentations.
Aye, sir. So what I want to call out, particularly about this state of Kentucky or the Commonwealth of Kentucky and other states that are executing it, is the language that you see in a lot of these mapping bills is very, very similar. And that's because a lot of it just comes from common sense principles from users. I would call out three things about the statute as it exists right now in Kentucky. The first is that all school maps that get created as part of the program have to be compatible with the software that public safety is using to get to maps. Two, that it requires a walkthrough of the site. One of the differences between the Kentucky legislation and the remainder of states out there is it requires a walkthrough by the Center of School Safety. Most school legislation out there for mapping requires the vendor making maps or the school district to do a walkthrough, which makes more sense. And then three, it just requires that maps be labeled in a certain way. That they be oriented north, that they have labels on it, that they have a grid on them, none of which is proprietary to any vendor. What I do want to call out is kind of the 7 states that are executing school mapping. There's about 20 with programs right now, but there's about 7 that are actually in process executing school mapping programs. The first is West Virginia, has almost identical language to the Kentucky bill. How West Virginia executed it was an individual grant one time to each of the school districts in the state to select a vendor, and there was probably 5 or 6 vendors that have been actively working there. South Carolina did a statewide RFP through the Department of Education to select one vendor. Georgia did a grant program to individual districts through the governor's office to select a vendor, again with the same language as Kentucky. Alabama, same language, did a statewide RFP through the state law enforcement agency. Kansas selected 3 approved vendors through the state 911 center. Nebraska, individual one-time grants to school districts. Minnesota, statewide RFP through the state 911 program. So there's many ways to successfully execute this. The models have either been do a statewide procurement to make sure there's one vendor for the entire state, or create standards and have many vendors try and create similar products. So to close out here, what I'd emphasize about MAPS is, again, as someone who's spent a lot of time under stress, kind of on the battlefield, as a ground force commander, or our version of an incident commander, you really need 3 things to be successful. You need like the guts to take command, which, as we've seen from recent events, doesn't always happen. 2, you need a good radio to be able to like communicate with the rest of your people out there. And 3, you need a map, because if you can't visualize all that radio traffic from a big building that you're not familiar with to be able to coordinate people from a command perspective, it's very difficult to coordinate resources in a big event like this. So that's the importance of MAPS. That's how other states are doing it, and I really appreciate the time briefing, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll take a couple questions, and we really do need to move on. Representative Bradger.
Thank you, Chair. I just have one question, part A and B, though. This is for Mr.
You all
Akers.
see what I'm talking about, right? Trying to get through a committee meeting.
Mr. Akers, can you tell me how many SROs Jefferson County schools have, and if they're following the law that's out there for one SRO for each school?
Okay. They now have registered 73 at this point in time. I'm not certain how many are in the administrative role. From what I've seen on their policy, that it's different than the normal SROs that we have throughout the state. For example, we want to have an SRO to remain in the building from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock to have those relationships. I understand that the SROs are there for weapons detection for 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and then they get in their cruisers and they go around. They have like 150 some odd schools there, so they're waiting to be called into a school district in a certain region. That's different than what the rest of the SROs do in the state of Kentucky. But they are trained as SROs through the shop that Shannon runs down there. So they have the exact training, but the way that they model their program is different than what the rest of the state does.
So they're not following the law?
They are trained SROs, so they've got that portion of the law done. The model that we see around the state is where an SRO stays in the building for the entire day to establish those relationships. So I don't know if that's what I would call following the law or not, but it's different than what the rest of the state's doing.
Thank you.
Senator Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I have just maybe a short statement and a question, okay? Here's the question on school counseling. Back in the day, the school counselors were the guidance counselors, focused on the academics, and the local pastors were the ones that focused on the social, emotional, that side of it. And if there was a tragedy, you would bet every pastor from the diverse churches would be there and be invited there by the school counselors. So is there a place today in your model of counseling for the local pastors and the local communities to come in there and do that? Would you invite them in?
I'm going to invite my colleague up as well, Bethany Salmon, who's here with me as well. We serve in different parts of the state. I'll get started and I'll let her chime in as well.
Well, you just tell me yes or no.
Yes or no.
Will you invite local pastors in to support you and your students?
That's not a decision that school counselors could make. I will say that school counselors, though, encourage community involvement tremendously and parental involvement.
Okay.
That's a part of our standards.
So here's the real question I have.
Sure.
You have to apply to the ASCA ethical standards for school counselors, right?
ASCA, yes.
ASCA.
Yes.
Okay, and when I read that, it's full of 26 references to gender identity, gender expression, being supportive of that. Sometimes it eliminates sex orientation, all it just says gender stuff. So we passed Senate Bill 150 recently, and is there, I mean, it looks to me like there's a conflict, a serious conflict between Senate Bill 150, what this Commonwealth and this legislature expects concerning gender identity and gender expression for minors, and what you can actually advise as a school counselor? Because it looks to me like the ASCA is in direct opposition to Senate Bill 150.
That's a great question. And honestly, we have received a lot of questions around Senate Bill 150 and the school counselor role on that. I can speak emphatically and let you know that the school counselor role is to support all students, but we jokingly call ourselves Switzerland. We are not going, our job is not to indoctrinate. Our job is truly to keep children safe. We try very hard to meet the whole needs of the child. But if a school counselor is bringing in their own personal beliefs, then that would be a violation. If you read through those standards, it's very, very clear that we are to meet the needs of that child as they relate to the school setting. And if a child is dealing with a gender identity issue, if they are dealing with something that I may not, in my own personal belief, agree with, every school counselor is going to have their own unique set of values, but our job as school counselors is to keep that child alive, to make sure that they are safe, and to make sure that they receive an education just as we would for any other child.
Okay, just one follow-up.
Briefly, please.
Could you support a child's gender expression as the same as their sexual identity according to your guidelines, and would you involve the parents in that determination?
100%, we school counselors will follow the law that Kentucky follows. If you're asking, do we support that lifestyle? That is going to be a decision that every unique counselor has in their own personal life. In our profession, we do not get into the weeds of trying to interfere with home and family rights. We believe in parental rights, 100%, but we support the child.
So your ethical guidelines, we'll carry this later on. Thank you very much for your forbearance, Mr. Chair.
All right, we're going to have to move on. So we appreciate you all's work. Y'all do a great job, too, by the way. I get questions all the time about school safety, and I tell them Kentucky's one of the leading states on this area. So we appreciate all your work. Thank you. All right, next group. The next two groups are going to have to bail the chairman out on time, okay?
We'll try.
All right, so we've got Kentucky Association of School Superintendents. Introduce yourself for the record and press the green light, and please proceed.
Well, good afternoon, Chairman Lewis and members of the committee. I'm Jim Flynn, Executive Director of the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents, and I'm joined by Barry Lee, Superintendent of Casey County Schools, and he's also our CAS Legislative Chair. We're grateful for the time and your commitment to our kids, and I'll toggle it over to Barry.
All right, Kentucky is a state on the rise. Our economy is continuing to grow. Thankfully, been shut off. Thankfully to legislation that has been passed by many in this group today. Education just isn't another line item in the budget. It's the foundation of everything that we value in Kentucky, our democracy, our economy, and our communities. Education fuels the workforce that powers the economic development, and it strengthens families and creates opportunities where it did not exist before. The decisions we make over the next session will determine whether Kentucky's momentum continues. But first, I want to recognize a few things that we've accomplished together over the past few years. You've made historic investments in teacher retirement system. You've brought the pension liability under control. The Medical Insurance Trust Fund and Shared Responsibility Program for retiree health insurance is now nearing 100% funding, and that's extraordinary progress. You've improved SEEK funding formula with meaningful increases to the base, including critical second-year increases in the biennial budgets. You've raised Tier 1 rate from 15% to 17.5%, and you've moved us closer to full funding of pupil transportation. You've passed landmark legislation like the Read to Succeed Act and the numeracy counts, giving our teachers tools and training to improve literacy and math achievement. And you've made school safety and student mental health a priority, building on the groundbreaking work from 2019. And this last session, you also passed the Red Tape Reduction Act, and that represents the first of what we hope is more efforts to reduce unnecessary, outdated, and redundant requirements on our schools and our districts. We welcome any efforts to reduce and eliminate these administrative burdens, most of which stem from state and federal statutes. Every hour our superintendents and staff spend on compliance paperwork is an hour not spent on student learning. We're eager to work with you and to redirect more time and resources into the classroom. And these aren't just policy wins, they're investments for Kentucky's children, and they're working, but we can't stop now.
So we kind of want to take back and look at the foundation of what we're talking about today. In our Constitution, it doesn't just suggest that we provide schools, it creates a shared duty primarily between the state and our local communities to provide an efficient system of common schools. Now, this partnership is the backbone of high-quality public education. It's constitutional, and it's a cornerstone of Kentucky's future. Local communities are holding up their end, on average providing over 54% of the funding effort for our public schools. They're deeply invested financially and personally in the success of children. But now's the time to build on the momentum that you've created and take the next bold steps together. And so there's 3 pivotal decisions that we think need to be looked at closely in the upcoming session. And we think this is a defining moment and that one that we can't let pass. One, Kentucky needs a new vision for public education, one that's responsive to today's challenges, innovative in its approach, and laser focused on excellence for every learner. And so today I want to share these 3 pivotal decisions that lie ahead. First, launching a meaningful and innovative education accountability system that reflects statewide priorities and what our communities actually value. Not only test scores, but in addition to growth, engagement, and real-world readiness. Second is building a strong, sustainable education workforce pipeline. We'll rise and fall on the quality of the professionals serving in our schools and districts. And we got to build on the momentum that we've started together in getting that workforce back on track. And third, securing a budget policy that invests in long-term student workforce success. And these 3 priorities are connected. They're interconnected. We risk achieving the excellence that we all want without addressing all 3. So we know you got limited time, and I think you have access to these priorities, but you can hit that link on the PowerPoint or that QR code if you want to learn more. But just know we stand ready to work with you to accomplish these. And so let me move on to this new bold approach to accountability that reflects what our students, their families, and the communities value most. Right now we're moving toward a new system that reflects the fact that every community in Kentucky is unique, have different assets, different needs, different challenges. Owensboro looks different from Pikeville. Casey County is different from Kenton County. Our accountability system needs to honor that diversity through meaningful collaboration while maintaining high statewide standards. We're proposing a partnership, a new approach to assessment accountability that's truth-telling and trust-building and informs and supports students and teachers in real time, not months after the fact, engages families and communities with a richer view of school quality, elevates innovation, personalization, and local voice, and centers on the student experience, emphasizing growth and authentic learning. This proposal balances statewide priorities in reading, math, graduation, and transition readiness with student growth measures, grade level transparency in grade level performance, and vibrant learning experiences that are meaningful and relevant in our students' lives. We have an opportunity to do something very special and return Kentucky to the cutting edge of educational innovation, and now's the time to seize it.
I think we all know that education is a people business. Students aren't widgets in a factory, and every child is unique and requires well-trained and capable professionals. Research tells us that there are 3 key levers that make most of our students ensure quality outcomes. First is the teacher. When the classroom door closes, their instructional leadership and capacity is what matter most. Teachers are the number one determinant of student learning achievement, and we must ensure that high quality, well-trained, properly resourced teachers are in every classroom. Second are our principals. You've heard it said people don't quit jobs, they quit their managers. You don't walk into a high-performing school, excellent across the board, that's not led by a strong principal. Leadership creates culture, and culture drives results. And finally, superintendents. In most communities across Kentucky, the superintendent is the CEO of the largest, most complex organization in town, the largest employer, the largest budget, the largest facilities, running food services and transportation budgets and fleets. Superintendents set the vision that create conditions and principals and teachers to succeed. So what can we do? Let's build on the momentum that you've created, designating education as a high-demand work sector. Let's build on strong pipelines into the field, supporting career development, and ensure educators have tools and resources, pay benefits, and working conditions to thrive. You've already made great progress with the student-teacher stipends and the scholarship programs. Now let's strengthen pre-service training pathways like Option 9, the Earn to Learn pathway that you passed in 2022, which still needs funding and support. With the top 5 in-demand work sector designation, we can support students through workforce and work-ready scholarship programs, but education doesn't qualify under the current rules. So let's fix that. We can incentivize the education pathway and programs through additional dual credit support, like Senator Higdon proposed in past sessions. What I'm hearing from superintendents across the state is we have a large number of alternate certified teachers who enter our classrooms with little or no pre-service training. These are good people with good intentions, but they struggle. That lead to higher absenteeism, more substitutes, higher healthcare costs, and more mid-year resignations, and more discipline issues and safety issues, and ultimately challenge in student learning. So we need to incentivize pathways in the profession. In 2024, you passed legislation creating a new teacher induction onboarding framework. That was important. Now's the time to fund that framework so it can be implemented with fidelity. We also need support for strong principals. Last session, Chairman West and Senate Education Committee heard a presentation from OEA about high-performing and struggling schools. The finding was clear: leadership and culture make the difference. We must implement a new principal, induction, and onboarding program, along with ongoing professional development to support strong leadership and culture building. If we get these 3 levers right, teachers, principals, and superintendents, everything else becomes possible.
Here's a good stopping point, I think, because we are really, really pressed for time now. So let's stop right here and we'll see if we've got questions.
We were trying to go fast.
You went fast.
We went fast.
You have anything important that you've left out?
I do. I just want to mention some concrete next steps.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, you all have passed and been a huge support to public education over the last several sessions. To continue that momentum, we're looking at an additional $300 each year in the SEEK base. That would be $4,886 in fiscal year 27, and then $5,186 in 2028. That restores us back to the 2008 buying power. With inflation and the cost of things, it's gone through the roof. I became superintendent 5 years ago. A school bus cost around $100,000. Last year, $150-some thousand, and that's in less than 5 years. That's just one example of the cost of things that are increasing. Adjusting the Tier 1 support from 17.5 to 20%. You all have been very active and supportive in that, and again, we're thankful. Ensure pupil transportation is calculated on the March data from the prior year and not from the arrears from 2 years prior. I think most supported that in the last session, but the understanding wasn't clear that it was two-year-old data. Consider adding add-ons for school resource officers. There's funding available, but make it consistent across the state to ensure that we have full funding for all SROs. And reinstate professional development and instructional material, and then again, provide new teacher and principal onboarding funding. And I'll turn it over to Jim.
And Chairman, I'll just mention, I was going to share some slides that tell the funding story, because you all have made some record investments in education, and it's very much appreciated. But when you index it with inflation, our buying power is still behind. And you were a superintendent in 2008. I was too. You know, we wouldn't have said we were flush with money then, but the big difference is the gap between education salaries and private sector salaries was much more narrow. And so restoring that buying power over the next 4 years will help us continue to make progress like we have in the last couple of sessions of trying to close that gap. So we stand ready to work with you. Thanks for your time. And we look forward to this session. We know it'll be challenging as always, but we want to be a trusted partner.
Thank you all. And when you come back again, I'm going to put you all first or second instead of
There you
last,
go.
maybe, in the next group too. So
All right.
I
Well,
knew
if you
it was going to be challenging, but maybe next time we'll have some more time.
Yeah,
So,
and feel free to reach out with questions.
Thank you.
all right, if we can have the educational cooperatives come up, and boy, you all really, really need to be brief. But really, I wanted people to get to know who you are. Yeah, and just give them the most important things that you all do, because you know some probably aren't really aware of what all you do. So just
Absolutely.
introduce yourself, turn your mic on, and let's proceed.
Thank you, Representative Lewis. Thank you for asking us to be a part of this working group today. And we are so thrilled to be able to be asked to see what we do. A lot of us have been in business for about 65 years, so we're doing some things right. I will introduce our group. David Young, who's going to be helping with this, and he is Central Kentucky Co-op. Jason Atkins is with us today. He is the Ojai Valley Educational Co-op. Bart Flinner is with us today. He is the executive director of Green River. Amy Razor could not be here. She had a board meeting, but she is Northern Kentucky, but she does have some cheerleaders with us today, and we're glad to have them. I am Nancy Hutchinson. I'm the CEO of the Kentucky Education Development Corporation in Ashland and Lexington. Kay Dixon is our executive director and friend at Southeast South Central. Jerry Green is at the Mayo. He's okay, but he's getting some work done, and he is the executive director over at Kentucky Valley. KVEC is what we call them. And Gretchen Wetzel is directly behind me, and she serves as the Western Kentucky Co-op.
All right, again, I'm David Young. I'm the executive director at the Central Kentucky Educational Cooperative, and we will be very brief this morning. On the screen there, you can see just some basics about educational cooperatives. We are regional. You can see that all 8 of those cooperatives and kind of where they're placed in Kentucky we were created in a KRS in the Kentucky Interlocal Cooperation Act. The third bullet there I think is an important one to know about us. We're quasi-governmental, and we think both parts of that quasi-governmental nature are really important. On one side, we are very much like school districts. So we're designated as a local education agency, which allows us to apply for grants. When people come to work for us, they can leave a school district, come work for us, still be in KTRS, still be in Kentucky insurance plans and those types of things. They can work for us and help the whole region, then can go back to a school district and work without a break-in service. So that part is really important. But on the other side, we don't receive any legislative funding or anything like that. We're independently funded. So on the other side of the quasi-governmental, we are designated as a 501c3 nonprofit, which allows us to generate revenue streams and apply for grants, which is important for us to be able to keep our doors open and to be able to serve our districts. You can see there at the bottom, we have lots of measures that are in place to hold ourselves physically accountable. We have boards that are made up of all of our superintendents, and so each month we have what you would think of as a typical board meeting where all of our financial documents are approved. We have to ask for approval for purchases that we want to make and salary schedules and those types of things. We also have to do independent audits. Our audits are published on the APA website every year. We have to follow open records law, procurement laws, and all those sorts of things. So several things in place to hold ourselves accountable from a physical standpoint and beyond that. We are unique. There are 8 of us, so if you could imagine, our regions have some unique needs, and then we have different employees that we're able to hire that might have a specific talent or skill. So there are some things that one co-op may provide that other co-ops may not, but we also have some things that we all do in common. And you can see those on the list there. Our biggest thing is probably that we provide professional learning. We provide tons of hours of training to teachers, principals, district administrators, superintendents, food service directors, et cetera. And you can see some other things as you go down through there. We provide customized in-district support. We host different cadres of educators that do the same job. We provide collective bidding so that our districts get the best value on their purchases. We have rank change programs. We have a special education division that's in partnership with KDE's OSEAL division. And then we also, John Akers mentioned earlier, we work really well with them. We have regional emergency and school crisis team response services in the event of a tragedy that happens in a school district as well.
Thank you, David. Real quick, on our collective cost savings, that was one of the things that David just hit on. We do collective bidding and bid list. All of the co-ops went together. They all belong to what we call Purchase Pros, and that is the DBA of KEDC. And with that buying power, we come together to get the best value for our school districts through purchasing. We also do extended services through the competitive, private, state, and federal grants that allow us to do a lot of our work. Professional learning are current best practices in academics. We do behavior management. A lot of those have come from grants. We do student support systems. We have finance cadres that help the finance directors at their schools. But one thing we do want to emphasize and overemphasize, we are a service agency only. We do not oversee. We cannot tell school districts what they can and cannot do. It's service only. An important role, all of the educational entities, all the KDE groups, the K groups, all of those have an important part in what we do, and they're a part of our ecosystem as well. And the cooperatives, however, are a little bit different on that entity, that we can provide a regional approach with a statewide impact. We touch each and every school district in Kentucky. They are perfectly positioned for certain types of services. As being a service agency, we have to hire the very best. So we do hire talented people that are dynamic in those regions for each and every one of our co-ops. We do form strong relationships, not just with school districts. A lot of us are involved with chambers. We have a co-op that has private school as a member. So we do a lot of outreach in our communities as well. And everything we've heard today, we have been involved in and have touched something in every one of the presentations today. We do keep a laser focused on service. Again, each co-op has their own niche. And my daughter says I don't say that right. It's niche. But they do. And that's why several districts belong to 2 to 3 co-ops. Some of them do belong to just one, but a lot of them want the services of those grants and those different things that we can offer that are so different. And so they belong to different co-ops.
And I'll mention there too that a bullet before the last one, I just think it's important to note, when a law is passed by the legislature for school districts, it's just like passing it for co-ops as well. And so the role we try to play there is to make sure that the school districts understand what that law says and where the flexibility points are in there, where the decisions are that need to be made. We help them think through that. I'll mention that our co-op just a few weeks ago had a think tank where 30 of my 32 districts participated in the first grade retention law, and really thinking through that and making sure that we're implementing that in a really responsible way. So I wanted to mention that to you all as well. On the last slide, it just talks about the potential that we had a minute ago. Nancy mentioned that we are regional, so we have the trust of our school districts, and we do things at a regional level, but when we unify, there are things that we can do to have a statewide impact. And so you can see some things that as we brainstorm, we know there's some work being done on training and mentoring for current and aspiring principals. That would be something statewide that we could help with. Coaching and mentoring for new and inexperienced teachers. Artificial intelligence is one of the most pressing issues that we have, both in terms of ethics and utilizing that at the highest level. That's something that co-ops can help with and are already working on and helping our districts with. Reading and math systems that result in on-grade level student achievement, and even virtual school options. I know a couple co-ops have some programs where the student is still enrolled in the district but participates in virtual school through the co-op in an effort to get them back into the school district at a later date. So those are just some things that we could do at a regional level, but to have a statewide impact.
And that's our elevator speech.
Yeah, that's great. That's it right there.
That's great. You all helped me a lot. And I think we've got one question, and that's going to be all we can take. Representative Tip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Nancy, David. Appreciate seeing you all today.
Good to see you.
How much does a school district typically pay in dues to be a member of a co-op?
For an average size, our school districts are all so many, all different sizes. An average size Kentucky school district is going to pay around probably $7,000 or $8,000 membership dues for a year. I know I can speak for us at CKEC. We have 32 school districts. And if you put all the membership dues, and we have Fayette County, which is the second biggest one in the state. When you put all of those together, for us, it'll fund about a position and a half to 2 positions. So we're very thankful to have that membership money, but only 2 people. There would be no way that with 2 people we could serve 32 school districts. So it's we're thankful to have it, but it's not an exorbitant amount that it produces.
Mr. Chair, just one quick clarifying question.
Please, briefly.
You had talked about your employees at the co-ops. It's my understanding that is certified by EPSB. Do those individuals come in and retain their membership in the teacher's retirement system? And what about an employee who's not a certified educator? What type of retirement are they offered?
I'll start it out. Yeah, absolutely. Most of the people that we hire, I can't think of any instance that we have not. They come in with KTRS because most of them are experts in their field and they're teachers or they have been administrators. Some have come in because we do adult ed. Just in my co-op, we have about 8 or 9 counties that we do their adult ed, and some of those folks are county and they're not in KTRS. So we do have some. We've got several that are just in county and state retirement rather than KTRS, and I think I can say that about all the co-ops.
And I was going to say for us, we don't have anybody who's certified who wasn't already in KTRS as a certified person who came to work for us.
We don't start them,
Thank you all very much. You all do great work. My districts, when I was superintendent, benefited greatly from the partnerships there, and it's been great. I need hold on just a minute. We'll have a December meeting, December 9th at 11 a.m., and that will be a special meeting, I guess. And then I apologize to the members. We always try to stay on schedule, 2 hours, and I think I let us drag over 7 minutes. So I do apologize for that. I hope you will forgive me. I need a motion to adjourn.